Sharif Osman Hadi's brother's statement in his killing, blaming the interim government and certain sections of the government for trying to delay elections, has really set the cat among the pigeons in Bangladesh. And this is because what it tends to do is it tends to focus on what many have been talking about, which is an internal conspiracy in Bangladesh to somehow delay elections. And is that one of the reasons why Sharif Osman Hadi was killed? Well, at least his brother seems to think so. Now, in the initial days when this murder happened, there was an effort by the interim government to try and pin the blame or shift the responsibility on forces that had apparently escaped to India. India strongly denied these allegations, rebutted them, and very clearly said that India insists on peaceful elections and a transition to democracy. India's message was very clear from day one. Today, India has been proved right by the statement from the brother of Sharif Osman Hadi, who has clearly said that this murder was to create disturbance or destabilization so that elections could be delayed. This is what India hadn't said. But definitely in the statement, India had said that Bangladesh should hold peaceful elections. And today, you know why that was said. Because obviously, this is clearly now an interim conspiracy. Now, who gains from delaying elections, or who wants to delay elections in Bangladesh? Well, number one is the Jamaat Islami Bangladesh. Why? Because at this point, there are multiple reasons why they feel so. One is that their ban has just been revoked and their electoral machinery is still not in place. Secondly, they don't want an election that will hand over power to a democratically elected government, which will make it more difficult for them to run their agenda, which is to demolish all traces of democracy and establish an Islamist radical state in Bangladesh. And that's something they want to do, and which is why any democratically elected government would have a mandate, and they would find it difficult to do what they are doing today, which is run amok, which is attack institutions, which is, ensure that radicals on the streets are giving out mob justice. So all of this is happening right now. So the Jamaat definitely is one party which wants, of course, the elections to be delayed, even though they may not say so in as open statements like this one, but they definitely want elections to be delayed. Who else wants the elections to be delayed? Well, remember, the new political force in Bangladesh is the NCP, the National Citizens Party. And this is a new party, barely new party, and therefore their electoral machinery isn't in place. They have a very small support base. They are at this point trying to form an alliance with the Jamaat Islami Bangladesh to try and see if they can win seats. And therefore, they are also not prepared for an election. And amongst them, there are many of these radical elements as well who don't want elections. So they are also a part of the same grouping. Now, if there are no elections, who benefits? That is where there is a question mark on the interim government. If there are no elections, if the elections are delayed, who benefits? The interim government does, because that means it'll probably get to stay on in power while these radical mobs, while the Jamaat types can get to do whatever they want and run their writ without really there being an elected government to enforce law and order. And that is one thing that obviously the interim government is also aware of. And the people who want elections as soon as possible are very few. And that is one is, of course, the BNP, which is the front runner in these elections. The BNP, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, has had its leader return after 17 years in exile during the Sheikh Hasina regime. And he's returned to Bangladesh. There was a massive crowd. He has a vision of democracy. He has a vision of a secular Bangladesh where even if it's governed by Islamist principles, it can still have space for Hindus. It can have space for Buddhists, minorities, Christians, who won't feel insecure, who won't face attacks like the Jamaat is doing now or like the radical forces are doing now. And the Jamaat has been blamed for these attacks by several groups within Bangladesh itself. And therefore, this is not something that's new or that's not new information in the public domain. Now, all of this means one thing, that there are people who don't want elections on time. There are people who want elections to be held as soon as possible. And everyone's made their point clear. From that, we can deduce that who gains if there's this kind of anarchy, this kind of violence on the streets. And it's very clear. It's the Jamaat, the NCP, who gain, who don't want it. And to some extent, if the elections don't happen, the interim government also gets to continue without really having fought an election for a longer period of time. Till, of course, forces that don't want those elections feel that they're ready for a takeover. So obviously, this is something that's a deeper internal conspiracy, what many in India have been talking about, because initially the interim government did put out a statement that was alluding to some kind of India hand, which now clearly has fallen flat with these statements. The interim government, trying to pin that blame on India has not worked. But obviously, this is something that is an internal conspiracy that needs investigation. Sharif Osman Hadi's brother's statement has made it clear. And not just that, there's another person who's been arrested, and he's also a radical preacher. And Bikrampuri has also said that, he was inspired by the posts of NCP leaders who wanted to create arson. So all of these things are very clear that the Jamaat NCP are not completely clean on this. At least the statements that are coming from within Bangladesh suggest so. India doesn't even have to say anything in this. And therefore, it's very clear that there is an internal conspiracy. There are people who want to delay elections, and those people could be behind this violence as well. At least that's what's already seemingly looking like to be a certain and a truthful reason for trying to delay elections. And that's something that obviously is coming from within Bangladesh at this point. For more such videos where we go beyond the headlines and deliver the news in the context that it's taking place, stay tuned to NDTV's YouTube platform for all the latest news and updates from India and across the world. Keep watching NDTV. Thank you so much for watching this video on NDTV's YouTube platform.